This is Paul Schrader. It is February 7th, 2005. I am now completing the final mix of this film. I was approached in 2001. John Frankenheimer was going to do this with Liam Neeson. John got sick. I was asked if I wanted to do it. I did.
Found him in a ditch with a kitchen knife in his back, murdered by one of you. You see the German army retreating, and it makes you feel hope. It should not. So, who is responsible for this? You, priest.
Now, the scene you're watching, which takes place in World War II in Holland, it was always the opening scene. It was a very strong opening. And this was shot backstage at Cinecittà in Rome toward the end of the shoot. It actually was rather cold on the days we did shoot this. Now, going back to the general story of I went off to Morocco and Rome in the winter of 2001, spring of 2002. We shot about 5 weeks in each country. All the exterior stuff was done in Morocco. The interior stuff was done at Cinecittà.
The responsibility he has incurred. The worker's hand.
Farmer.
Excellent. We will start with you.
Stop!
I think one of the inherent problems with the script that I directed as a horror film lay in its very premise and in the originality of its premise. The feeling was, and this was a feeling even before I became involved, the feeling was that you had to get away from the Friedkin Exorcist because it was such a classic. And one of the ways to do that was to switch the possessed person from a girl to a boy, but even more importantly, to switch the very nature of the possession. So in this case, the boy who is possessed is afflicted. He is an outcast. And as the possession takes hold, he gets better. And everyone else becomes more and more insane. This, I thought, was an ingenious twist on the formula and really separated it from the Friedkin film and made it its own film. The problem, of course, is that when you have a young person getting better, you have essentially taken the motor out of the horror vehicle. Because, horror is based on an innocent tormented while the clock runs. Well, we didn't have an innocent tormented anymore. We had an innocent getting better. And try as you might through whatever kinds of gimmicks or sound effects or whatnot, that's not a very effective horror mechanism. And that was fine with me because I had in mind a slightly different kind of film, more film about Marin's journey than a strictly, a horror vehicle. After Marin is sort of caught in a Sophie's Choice situation in Holland. The film jumps forward to after World War II. This scene here is set in Nairobi, but most of the movie is set in the Turkana district, which is up near the Sudan border.
We all serve in the same cause, Major Granville.
I traveled up to the Turkana area for a week and a half just to look around and to take photos. It's a rather war-ravaged area, not possible to shoot there. But we were able to shoot in Morocco and around the area of Marrakesh, where these scenes are set.
It's early Christian, which makes for quite a mystery given its location.
I liked Stellan very, very much for this role. I had met Stellan at the Telluride Film Festival when he was being honored there. And we had sort of hit it off, and I think the world of him as an actor. And he's also a very pleasant and generous human being, which helps. I thought Stellan was a perfect fit, not only because he was Swedish, and it's kind of cool to have, the best current Swedish actor playing the best Swedish actor of his father's generation, Max von Sydow. But also, I liked his introspective quality. When Stellan is sort of cornered as an actor, he tends to go inside rather than outside. And I thought that was very good for Marin. Because you do have, kind of a big melodrama, and the moments for the character to be introspective are not going to be that many. So you have to have an actor who naturally gravitates toward those areas.
Thank you.
This is a little awkward. Cardinal Jenkins is somewhat concerned.
The actor playing the young priest, Father Francis, is Gabriel Mann. He had been cast by Frankenheimer. And I think he's a terrific actor. And I think he and Stellan work off each other very, very well. I like the physical relationship of the two of them.
Why did you have a seat there?
The man who plays Major Granville is named Julian Wadham. And like many of the actors, it was cast out of London because you needed British accents, because if they're going to speak English, it would be with a British accent.
Part of Father Francis's job will be to see to that.
An archaeologist.
No matter how many films you make, as a director, you always find yourself having the same sort of conversations with a cinematographer. And the cinematographer will always say to you at some point, wouldn't the character do this? Or wouldn't the character stand there? And you think, boy, I didn't know so-and-so was so interested in the story, or so following the nuances of these characters. And then, of course, you come to shoot the scene and you realize that they look better if they stand there, or they're more interesting to light. But the cinematographer never wants to say to you, I can light him more interesting if he walks across the room. He'll say to you, don't you think he would want to walk across the room? And you would say, yeah, I think so. And then you have him walk across the room, only to realize that he's walking over there because there's better light there.
It is a necessary thing.
Cruelty is never necessary, Chuma.
You think we are savages? Huh?
I think some of you are good people, lost in confusion.
Well, there's nothing confusing about that ceremony, Father. They're weakening the bull so that someone can approach it. And as for some of the Turkana being savages, you may want to be careful. Sabitwana back there is Chuma's cousin.
I've been putting together a score for this film. Obviously, what was lacking when I left the production was a soundtrack. We had done about 80% of the digital effects. We were able to get the money to finish those. But we had no music. The only music we had was what they call temp music, which is music from other films. So I went to Angelo Badalamenti, who was a friend and who I've done 4 or 5 films with. And Angelo, as a favor, put together about 15 minutes of music, which was basically the theme you just heard and the theme you will hear again momentarily. And that allowed me to at least have a big unifying theme. I then went to a heavy metal group called Dog Fashion Disco, who I had come across through my son, who was 15, who was a follower of theirs. And I was able to help them secure a record deal. And so they were very grateful, and they offered to do anything I wanted for free. And so the last 20 minutes of the movie, I did with them. And so the score is really a kind of patchwork quilt of these various sources mixed, played off against each other. And it works pretty well. But given the situation, I think we managed to come up with quite a good soundtrack. Now, we built these sets about 45 minutes outside of Marrakesh. And given today's standards, there's not much CGI in this film. You know, a shot like this is a shot like this. We've gotten to a point in filmmaking now where, one almost assumes that every beautiful or grand shot is artificially enhanced. And there are some shots in this film that are done, but mostly we actually built this stuff. And now this church, when you saw it a moment ago and you saw the front was covered, that was done actually with a little bit of a blue hanging in front because we couldn't afford to bury the church and then dig it up again. So we built it unburied and then filled in the dirt afterward.
The church must have been deliberately buried right after it was built.
Now, coming up, we're going to go back to this town that we built called Durrati. And the idea of the town essentially being a kind of a Western outpost. There's Western element in all of this, as you'll see in this very sort of Cheyenne autumn shot coming up right here. And also in the way that Stellan walks, that sort of John Wayne walk of his. And this Western sort of fort we built, again outside of Marrakesh. John Graysmark was the production designer. And I brought back a lot of the photos I had taken in Kenya, in the Turkana district. And from his experience doing, period British films and those photos, we came up with this Western outpost sort of town. And you really wanted it to feel like they were on sort of the edge of civilization. So the town has a mixture of native huts, of military huts, and, a few buildings here and there.
Hello, Papa.
Hello, James.
Well, it's a beginning.
Call for the doctor.
To the heat.
Pick him up.
Gravesmark became ill toward the end of our shoot. He is credited for this film, and these are his sets. Now, this rock right here, this is a little bit of CGI, because I'll mention the thing I mentioned earlier. And then this young actor here, Billy Crawford, he in fact has his good leg is in a green sock, which is then taken out. And the bad leg, which you will see in a moment, is in fact a prosthetic leg, a third leg. Billy Crawford is an American from Texas of Filipino-American background. And they had done, Morgan Creek had done, and Frankenheimer had done quite an extensive talent search to come up with him. So he was hired before I came on board. And he is a disco singer, and quite a successful one, not in this country, but particularly in France. And since we were in Morocco, where there were a lot of French tourists, he was always being recognized by the French schoolgirls who were vacationing with their parents. He doesn't look like he does in this movie. He has two incarnations in this film. One as Cheche, this outcast, and another as the demon. In fact, he looks like neither of these. And he had to endure lots of time with the prosthetics. And in fact, his true appearance is never shown in the film.
Why don't they help him?
They think he's cursed. What he needs is sustained treatment. Yes?
Nothing.
Early this year. 2 of the cattle have been killed already.
Thank you, Jim.
I must keep you safe with the lady doctor.
Can't rely on him. He'll just go do whatever he feels like. He'll tell you
The sores were very infected. I've cleaned and dressed them. There's no permanent damage. The leg and arm are different matter. Night, Mara. Hirocha.
The nurse here, the character Rachel, is played by Clara Bellar, who is French-Brazilian and had been in Spielberg's AI. It was a tricky role to cast because I wanted someone who wasn't, the conventional sort of airhead beauty. And obviously there's always pressure on you to cast those people. But I thought Clara had a nice period feel to her and did not feel like an actress from the 90s or from 2000. Anyway, that's one of the things that drew me to using her and to using this hairstyle, trying to stay, faithful to this as a period film.
Who could believe such things were happening?
No one wanted to believe. It's so much easier to believe evil is random or...
Now that the lights are out and the characters are silhouetted, it's probably a good time to talk about the cinematographer, Vittorio Storaro, who most moviegoers know from his work with Bertolucci, Conformist, Last Emperor, Novecento. And when we came to doing this, he had signed on to do it with Frankenheimer, so he was in place when I came. And he is in quasi-retirement. He teaches in Rome, has been working on this whole series of books on the history of light. And so he liked the idea of working near home, and he had his group with him. He had a very unique way of shooting, which I'll talk about, but right now we're going to go into a dream sequence. And I wanted to do a kind of period dream sequence, like the kind they used to do in the 40s, the famous Salvador Dali Hitchcock dream sequence. And so it came up with these elements to start to get into a kind of interior life for Marin. So I reached back into the Friedkin film and took this white-faced figure, which had been a subliminal flash cut in that film, and used it as one of the faces of the demon. And that's his first appearance, and then it comes back again toward the end.
Brave, Chichi. You're on the mend. There.
Now, coming up will be the infestation scene. But let me get back to Vittorio. Vittorio works all from a light board, which is a very theatrical arrangement, theatrical as in the theater. And he presets an enormous amounts of lights, even for exteriors, and has them hooked up to large light boards, which he then manipulates during the course of the shot. So it is very much like theater lighting. And in some scenes, he will actually change the lighting during the course of the scene you're shooting, so that, normally after you've done a number of takes and you're happy with it, you say to the actors, are you satisfied? Well, I had to learn to start saying that to Vittorio, because he was also doing variations in the middle of a shot. And sometimes he would say to me, give me one more, I'd like to try something else. This, of course, allowed him to turn around quite quickly, because the entire space, this church, for example, was pre-lit from all over. And then all just continually moving around these banks of light. He also had the f-stop remote in his hand. So while he was manipulating the lights, he would also manipulate the stop so that he could change the exposure as the shot was going on. And if we were shooting with two cameras, he would have two f-stop remotes and would change both cameras. So I had never worked in that way before, and that was quite an education. And the first thing that happened every single location you went to is they had to set up Vittorio's little unit because it had to be protected from the weather. And it was this little kind of a tent where all of his light boards and his remotes and could be kept. And also he stayed in radio contact with his electricians to keep moving the lights around between shots. So that was quite an original experience. So our intrepid team here has gone into the church, which they found buried, and it has these wonderful murals, which we designed and which were kind of mixture of traditional mosaics like from Ravenna, but with very kind of gory battle scenes. And so we created all of these mosaics as well as the statues. This is the infestation. They have discovered a sarcophagus that leads below the church. And they open that up. Something gets into Cheche. And we know what that is. And that's the basement place where you're never supposed to go in movies. Jason and Jeff, the two main musicians from Dog Fashion or DFD, came up with a sound which we call the spring sound, which is all through here right now. And this became a kind of devil sound for us. So then we took this spring sound and incorporated it elsewhere in the film. So you hear it in the Dutch village when the wind blows at his Maren's cassock. You just heard it when Cheche was infested. And that sort of became a way for me to take these diverse pieces of music and have some common threads by using such a thing as the spring sound.
But I never believed.
After this scene, there's a scene that really didn't work so well, I think. It's a scene with the cows and the hyenas, this scene here. And I think I left it in primarily to help establish this character, Ilario here, who plays Sebatuana, the local chief, and to give him a chance to establish himself as a character. But the scene, which, sounded quite kind of horrific on paper, on the script, we just weren't able to find a way to give it that same visual impact that it had on the script.
He thinks the church is evil.
Nisuba nabo etiki.
Neo niene. Nekuapata wapana. This side of the family. Either old ways or nothing. No argument.
Andrew French here with Stalin plays Chuma, the British actor.
Look here. Look how it was done.
I added this scene primarily because I like these mosaics so much that David Packard did. That was his name. He had come from London, and in fact, he left us to go design a chapel for Russell Crowe's wedding. Anyway, these are his mosaics, which are really fabulous, and an original. And it also gives me a chance to sort of explain the whole notion of Lucifer, the god of light, the fallen angel, which is a slightly different kind of Satan myth, and the one that we're using, so that the figure there, which we created of Lucifer, is prefigures the form that the demon will ultimately take in this film, as he becomes perfected. Here again are these sort of mixture of frontal, two-dimensional mosaics with gory Renaissance violence. Of course, totally without any historical viability. We chase sun a lot on this film. I'm just thinking of that now, but I'm looking at this scene, which was one of those days where the sun was going in and out. But we managed to get a lot of sun on screen, which I felt was important. In fact, the earlier scene where Mweke shows Father Francis the schoolhouse, we originally shot in shadow, and then we're able to go back on a later day and shoot it again in full sun. Now the British troops arrive. I cut the end of this scene, but if you look carefully, when you go back to that high angle, you'll see Mweke and Francis arriving. And the second half of the scene is them greeting Granville, which just really wasn't that important, and one of the many things that in this film, like all films, gets cut out. Ralph Brown is a terrific British character actor, sort of the Jack Hawkins of his generation. I remember him fondly from With Nail and I. And this is sort of the type of role he can do in his sleep. This actor here is Bert Caesar, who's also known in Great Britain as The Voice. This exterior is the only exterior that was shot on stage. This was shot on stage in Rome. It looks like it, at least it looks like it to me. And when you come around here, you can see that we're shooting up against a translight. But apart from this, all of the village stuff was actually done on location in Morocco. Now here's a good example of what CGI does today. In a former time, a magic hour shot like that, you would shoot in magic hour, which really only lasts about 10-15 minutes. It's when the sky is purple. Today you just do a lock off during the regular day, and then you shoot it at night, and then you add the blue sky later. In fact, I think it's safe to say that when ever in today's cinema, whenever you see a particularly beautiful shot, it's most likely that someone has reached in digitally and enhanced it. Gone are the days where cinematographers sat and waited for the right lights or the right clouds. Now they just put them in. This is a sort of a tripartite intercutting of a stillbirth of Sebituana's wife, an operation on Cheche to fix his leg, and 2 British soldiers who are looting the church. I don't have a whole lot to say about this. This is all shot on stage at Chinchita.
Jesus Christ.
Hundreds of them. Every kind of precious stone.
Just a handful is all I need.
All we need, Private. We pull the tape, yeah?
Yeah.
Ciao, abbiamo tutto one.
The sequence that's coming up after this is a good example of how sometimes a cinematographer can step in and kind of direct a scene. I had this sort of long scene all... It's not the scene that's immediate. It's a scene that's coming up after this scene. I'll hold off on that. This airstrip we plowed out there, and we had some rain. By the time we left Morocco, this airstrip was all green. So we managed to shoot it before the rains.
Merin. What's going on here?
Getting back to the scene that's coming up, I didn't quite know how to shoot the scene. I knew it was a long scene, and I knew that it looked 360 degrees, and that we were having trouble with sun. We only had a half day scheduled for the scene, and that to shoot it in any conventional way would have trapped me in terms of the light, and would not have been as interesting. And So I went back and forth in my mind. Oh, here's Stellan's John Wayne walk. The Duke goes back to his car. So I didn't quite know how to shoot it, and I sort of threw myself at Storaro's mercy. And he and his operator essentially devised a way to shoot it Steadicam, all one master. So this scene that we are now watching, even though it's edited, was shot by and large in one take from 3 different masters, which run through the full 3 minutes of the take. And Vittorio sort of just took charge and started telling the actors where to stand and telling the Schrader where to move. And he sort of choreographed this for me. And it worked out really well. As soon as I saw what he was doing, because he was trying to tell me what to do, and I couldn't quite figure out what he was talking about. And then when I saw him doing it, I realized that was, the way to go. And because you, in today's cinema, because you videotape everything you do, you can look at all your takes immediately after you shoot them. And in a case like this, you're looking at these long masters, and it's very easy to quickly figure out what little bits of coverage you need. Like this piece here. This was part of the master, and the other one was a piece of the coverage. This is the master that Vittorio had devised. And, it went through the whole scene. Whereas this is a little piece of coverage that is added so that we can intercut and go back to this master.
He repeats such obscenity, arrest him, Chuma. And you as well, do you understand?
So that, went back and found the little pieces in order to make the long master work. But what really gets interesting when you're shooting a long master like this, like a 4-minute Steadicam master with all this blocking and actors moving around, of course you get into some very interesting compositions. The shot coming up where these kind of pivots, you're thrown into them because you're trying to figure out a way to keep the shot alive. And this pivot here is very, very nice. I love this. And you're sweeping across Andrew's face and sweeping across Gabe, into a kind of 3070 over here. So I learned a lesson from Vittorio that day about how to shoot a scene like this. This long sequence coming up, this is our Moroccan town. When he enters, he'll step onto stage in Rome. When they exit again, they'll return to Morocco.
Hello, Rachel. Is he all right?
The boy here is getting better much quicker than he should. Actually, I just jumped the line there in a kind of interesting way. On the master, I ended up on the right side of the line. I wanted to be on the left for my coverage. So I found a neutral angle looking straight over their heads, which then allows you to come back across the line without doing any great violence. Although, of course, it's kind of odd to hear anybody talk about the line anymore. There used to be all these rules of editing. There really aren't any rules of editing anymore. There is no line. You can virtually cut from anything to anything. that whole tradition of the well-crafted film has gone the way of a lot of other traditions. I was somewhat concerned with those traditions, though, in this film, because I wanted the film to feel like a period piece, like a 40s piece. And I wanted it to be hip enough not to be completely stodgy, but also to be faithful enough to compositions and lighting of that period, so it didn't feel like a completely modern piece, like these films they do now, which are all blue or green and all hyper-fast cuts and shaky cam. I didn't feel that style would be right for this kind of a period drama. Now, this action sequence here at night, which was shot over the course of 3 nights or 3 half days. We tended to do split days in Morocco. So we'd shoot one half of the day in daylight, have dinner, and then shoot the other half of the day in the darkness. And a lot of setups here. This was one of the scenes that I worked on a storyboard with. I usually don't storyboard. I usually sort of like to find the scene as it presents itself and visually think my way through it in response to watching the scene and blocking it, rather than come on the set with a pre-planned notion of the shots. It just seems to me that a scene could live better if you're changing with the scene and the blocking is changing as it's going along. But there are so many components to this scene, so many different actors, so much different action, so many different crucial little plot points and bits of exposition and character points that had to come across, that I did start doing a rough kind of storyboard here, just so that I wouldn't forget any of all of these elements. But again here, we because we had been successful with that Steadicam work on the mountain, we used some of it here too.
Stop there! A reason for fear is what you need. Then I can oblige.
Now, when that camera shoots up like that, that's on a machine they call Technocrane, which is a remote camera, and which used to be a fairly expensive and unique and hard to get piece of equipment, but now has sort of become part of the everyday repertoire of filmmaking.
Falling by the lorry, allow the natives to tidy this up. Sir, to the car, sir.
Now, in the next scene, Father Francis, Gabe Mann, has been sleeping at the clinic, and he hears the voice of the demon coming into his ear, which is a special lens you use when you have to come in this close.
Sorry I startled you. Did you manage to sleep through the night?
Yes. I wish I could say the same for Rachel. She woke several times after you left. afraid something might happen to the boy. She finally calmed down when they said I'd watch over him, which seemed the least I could do.
Don't.
Don't what? Don't acknowledge the fact that I was the one that asked Granville to come.
I didn't ask him to shoot the girl. There's only one person responsible for what happened.
I like this scene here. I'm quite proud of it for a number of reasons. It's a long exposition scene. There's around 3 minutes indoors and another couple minutes outdoors. And it's a fairly heavy conversation.
I doubt there'll be much of a class.
5 pages of dialogue.
I'm sure some of them will turn up.
And I think I solved this problem quite well. Different days of shooting, you succeed or fail in different degrees. And the way this blocked out, the way I kept them moving, the way the angles fell in, and the coverage fell in, I felt that I was able to keep the scene alive through all of its talkiness and keep the relationships continually moving and shifting, and make the scene quite rich. For me, one of the great pleasures and challenges of directing is essentially directing good dialogue, which I would much rather do than direct action. And, having a good scene with 2 actors who are good, and then figuring out how to keep it alive visually and keep moving around, that to me is the most pleasurable part of directing.
I survived, if that's what you mean. Did I live?
And this particular scene, of course, we were sort of blessed with the beautiful golden late day sun, in which both the actors look so terrific. There's a little shot coming up that I've done in other films, which I call a blindside POV, which is the point of view of somebody who's walking away. In that particular case, Marin exits frame and the camera keeps pulling back in his point of view. Now, in this scene coming up, which, like some other scenes in the film, has a biblical reference, in this case, slaughter of the innocents of the children. There's references to Peter crucified, the head of John the Baptist, Saint Sebastian. And, I had so many scenes of different kinds of action, trying to find a way to do this one a little bit differently. And what we decided on was, originally we decided to do it handheld, 2 cameras. Now, there isn't any real handheld work in this film. It's all either dolly or Steadicam. So I thought, well, we'll do this scene handheld. It'll make it stand out a little bit more. And then, as we got into the scene, rehearsing it, because we were using 2 cameras in a small room, we started getting more and more into Dutch angles, by which they mean an angle that is askew. And I started liking these Dutch angles, and so we ended up shooting the whole scene on the Dutch. The phrase Dutch angle comes from the wars between England and Holland, when the English looked for any way they could to denigrate the Dutch, and the Dutch were referred to as drunkards. So Dutch courage was alcohol, and Dutch treat was the other person paying. And the idea of the Dutch angle came from the idea of the drunken Dutchman. Anyway, it's been a bit of film terminology from the earliest days of film history. Now, the scene that's coming up here was one of those scenes where I decided to do with great montage, as opposed to that kind of handheld work in the previous scene, or that mise-en-scène work with the Steadicam. To do this scene, or more accurately, the scene once Rachel leaves, as a series of cuts, which is with a lot of coverage, trying to build suspense, through the editing.
Will you be all right?
Yes.
The music is dropping out right now. At this juncture in the film, Tom Drescher, the music editor, had a track in here that was sort of over the top. And we wrestled with that track, trying to make it work. We weren't really satisfied with it. So decided to drop it. And just go with effects for this section here, through the editing. I always had music here when I was temping it, but I think it works pretty well without music. It's so strange coming back to this after all this time. Film like this, particularly a film that's shot on location, there's a lot of ADR work. ADR refers to voice replacement. When the soundtrack is dirty, and they bring the actors in and they do their lines again in a sterile audio environment. And I don't know how much you really, how important ADR is anymore. It used to be absolutely critical because the sound quality was so bad on so many stages. But with the new digital technology, the way you're able to clean up dialogue, over and over again today, you run into dialogue that 10 years ago would have just been unusable. And lo and behold, they digitize it, they notch it, and it becomes usable. I did slip in a few little hyena growls over the sleeping boy. And then, of course, after the demon sort of reveals himself, I bring in music again. And then Francis is now unsure whether or not what he actually saw happened, and then sees the blood on his hand and realizes that it did. There's a scene coming up now, again, the kind of scenes that I like to do. You know, I said to Stellan at one point, I said, for me, so many directors love to do all this action stuff. I said to Stellan, I said, just give me 2 angry actors in a kitchen and I'm happy. And so here we have 2 angry actors in a kitchen. And it's the kind of stuff that I love to do. Oh, it was a sort of a treat for Schrader, this location, because he lit it primarily with those gas lamps, which meant that he could have all of this low source light and giving this kind of haunted look to the actors by shooting the light up at them and having it completely justified by the room, so that the actors naturally fall into some very interesting light patterns, having the forehead shaded and the chin bright. It makes for a very dynamic scene.
It's the work of man. Why can't you accept that?
Because my only concern is the eternal soul of that young man. Are you so arrogant, Marin? To fault the rest of the world in your crisis of faith? That you would deny to someone what you once cherished simply because you now doubt it?
I remember one day Stellan came to me. He had a dream, and in this dream he was on the lot at Cinecittà, and he ran into Max and Seadow. And Max was about 7 feet tall and was wearing a dress and high heels. And they had been on stage together, and they talked a little bit about their stage work. And then they split apart, and and Stellan was telling me the story, and he said, of course, that's exactly what it was. It was the man who was bigger than I was wearing a dress, and I was trying to come to terms with that.
He would like it.
Good, Chicha, good.
He wants to do it in the church. He seems to think that's where you live. He wants to be as much like you as he can. Unless you want to explain your misgivings to him.
One of the nice things I liked that Billy Crawford did in a number of these scenes is this really kind of creepy kid, so enamored of getting better, and of course is possessed. In this scene, the Granville character, Julian, commits suicide. I'm thinking about the production. We hired, I think, a group of around 30 Kenyan musicians who we hired in Nairobi, and we brought to Marrakesh. And they were not only extras, but they played music that we used in the film, and they helped out with the language of the Turkana. and, lent an air of authenticity to the dressing of the black Moroccan extras to try to give it more an authentic Kenyan feel. These shots here of Ralph, you really see a nice angle on the church we built, and also behind Julian, you can see the fact that it's getting greener as we're shooting in Morocco. It has begun to rain, and the grass is getting greener. And in fact, we've had on a number of scenes we had to go through and pluck out all the grass. That little butterfly thing is something I added in the early scene with Granville. I don't know quite what it means. It's just one of those idiosyncratic details that you put in order to have a little mystery. There's a little loop-de-doo Steadicam shot here. And I'm not sure what it meant at all.
Oh! Leave it. Don't bother, Doctor. He asked me to give you a message before he'd shot himself. Said he understood what you were going through, and that this was...
There's a bit of a demon shot coming up where we use the spring sound again. Had a little, hydraulic lift here for Billy.
Something got into him. Mr. Merrin, sir. Some of the boys, they're not too happy. Major was well liked. So if you have any pull with the spear chuckers, I'd advise them to step quietly.
I'll do what I can. Thank you, Sergeant Major.
Carry on!
When we were shooting, across the street, the studio street, from where we were, Mel Gibson was shooting Passion of the Christ. So I saw, quite a few scenes shot from that film. I knew Caleb Dashinell, the cinematographer, and I went over there from time to time and looked at the stuff they were doing. And so Christ and the devil across the way. And in fact, I was talking to Mel one day, and he was complaining about people who were getting on his case about the film. And I said to him, having been involved with The Last Temptation of Christ, I said, when you work with this subject matter, no matter what you do, people will come after you. It's just the nature of the subject matter. And I looked at him and I realized that he was one of the people who hated Last Temptation of Christ. So that it was not a very sympathetic ear.
What do you make of that, Sergeant Major?
I don't know. But get on the radio to town. I want all available men up here on the double.
Father Francis here has a very, very bad idea to baptize the boy. And it's quite clear that this will come to no good. I love this old car that they found in England. They had to ship it over, although I can't. Oh yes, that car was made by the same people who made the Mini. It's their the little pickup version by the same company. Very, very cool car.
What is it? It's music for battle.
Now, getting involved in all the night shooting here in Morocco, it's always tricky shooting at night because there really isn't that much light at night. On the other hand, if you don't put light on things, you don't even know you're on location. So that constant sort of swapping off between how much light would there actually be and how much light can you get away with before it starts to look really artificial. Most films err on the side of being far too artificial. Far more light in night exteriors than there is in reality at all. Now, we did a little gimmick here. I had this idea that the demon would throw Francis and Rachel back in regular speed, and then as the camera panned, it would be revealed that Francis was going at a much slower speed. So in this shot, it starts out at regular speed, and then Gabriel just drops out of frame. And we just hold on an empty frame here. And then he is shot in front of a green screen and then added in. So he's shot at 96 frames in front of a green screen and then thrown in.
I warned you about that.
We were under considerable pressure to get out of Morocco from Morgan Creek. The war was coming, and people knew it was coming. And, Morocco is sort of tense. There were some incidents while we were there. They found explosives in an airliner. There was the bombings in Casablanca. So the feeling was that we had to get out before Christmas. Right now, this is pretty much at the end of our time in Morocco, as you can see by how green the fields have gotten. And the reason the one scene with Dr. Lamu was shot interior in Rome was that we just had to. We were under instructions to get out by Christmas. I myself, of course, would have just preferred to keep shooting, but it wasn't my decision.
Quietly and go home. And we'll be the ones doing the sparing. If it's a fight they want, it's a fight they're gonna get.
You had no idea what you were toying with, did you? Booker.
have a copy. I've got to get to town. This boy is possessed.
Francis here says Satan is real, which is a line from a Louvin Brothers song that I added. I liked. Although he kept saying Satan is real. I had to get him to do it over again. Here, the demon is perfected. And Victorio gets a chance to put a big light right behind him and pour in some smoke and perfect him. The earthquake here is one of those CGI things, as you would expect. Throwing styrofoam rocks off from the top of the church, and then digitally removing the fellows who are throwing them off. Although in that particular case, the styrofoam rocks rolled into the fire we had, and the rocks burst on fire, and we had to quickly abort the shot, come in there with fire extinguishers because all the rocks started burning, and there was a fear that the whole church was going to go up. So it's not a good thing when the rocks start burning.
Moving the rubble. All right, sir.
Well, are they gone or not?
There's no way to know.
Right then. Corporal Williams. Send a detailer man to help Mr. Merrin clear that rubble. Then I want you and another detail to go out there and see if our friends are gone or not. And have a look for Father Francis. Rest of the squad to stay on the perimeter.
There's a scene coming up where they find Francis. After rehearsing with Gabriel Mann and getting to know Gabriel, and he's so handsome. He's such a beauty. I thought to myself, St. Peter is not going to do here. This has to be St. Sebastian. So I got a chance to do Gabe here a la St. Sebastian, which of course had figured in another film I made, Life of Yukio Mishima, where I did a shot of Mishima posing as St. Sebastian.
He's alive. Get the stretcher. Die! Chuma, get the nurse. Tell her to come to the clinic. Tell her she must come. Tell her it's Father Francis.
The shot of the hyena coming up from the hyena cam here. The hyenas were not that easy to work with. They are not camera-friendly animals that on their own, as a single animal, they are not menacing. They only have any kind of courage in packs. And so you can't get them to do anything menacing on their own. You can't threaten them or entice them. They will be menacing in packs, particularly when facing a weaker opponent. But you cannot instruct them or train them when you have them in packs. We spent a lot of time with those hyenas we had in second unit. And, we have a number of shots of real hyenas in the film, but for the things like where the hyenas are on the mountaintop, where we really wanted to use the real hyenas, and we shot with the real hyenas there, and went back with second unit trying to get real hyenas. We never could get it. And in the end, had to take the hyenas we had shot in front of black and manipulate them digitally to sort of look real, or as real as we could. But it was a not the ideal solution.
He's in the boy. Oh, God help us. He's in the boy.
Here is, again, another example of a techno crane, remote crane swinging around, enabling you to do a 180-degree spin during the course of a shot. And, Andrew there did do his... he did that fall himself. In fact, until he had done it, I didn't really think it was dangerous. Somebody said to me, should he do that fall? I said, of course he should do it. And then after he did it, I realized, wow, he could have gotten hurt.
Don't follow me.
So Marin comes down here to try to find Rachel. This statue was based on the Pazuzu statue in the original Friedkin Exorcist. That statue was based on one that was found in Iraq and then duplicated in that film, both in the Iraq section and in Reagan's bedroom, where it sort of shows up magically on her bed. Rather than use the same statue, we created a kind of African version of it with African details and the cobra phallus. We also, in this cavern, had a lot of African details in terms of the primitive drawings and the mass, trying to set this particular story in Kenya. The notion of the premise was that the devil had appeared here and that he had been exorcised, and they built this church on top of this cavern we're in now, where there was a satanic cult, and then covered the church up with sand.
I want to be back. He took me there.
You were dreaming, that's all.
But I want to go back. You have to let me. It was different. I was helping. You can go!
Rachel! I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Rachel. I'm sorry.
We can help each other. Only we can help each other.
Rachel.
We're the same, you and I.
You're a passionate man, Marin. Full of hunger.
Get out. Now.
You call me cruel. Rachel was rewriting her past. Then you destroyed it.
You're the great deceiver.
Did Father Francis mention me?
He called you Satan.
Did I not roll away the stones for you?
Why torment Rachel? She's not the one who sinned.
She never helped another prisoner. She traded her body for food. She betrayed her friends.
Liar!
You hate God, Merrin. And why not? God gives you guilt. The guilt is unbearable.
I do not curse God.
But there is one thing you can do.
I modeled this kind of forehead. Originally, we were just going to do Billy the way he is. Then we built this kind of elongated forehead, a la, some of the African tribes and the early Egyptians, and tried to create this sort of glossy sort of look for him. And I also felt, when I first read the script, that at some point we have to get Merrin on his knees. You can't show his journey without, at some point, him dropping to his knees and asking God for the strength to continue.
Purify me. Purify me for this task.
This is the gunslinger scene, where the old gunfighter digs out his old 6-gun and prepares to go off into battle. And here comes John Wayne in a dress. As I said to Stellan at the time, it takes a big man to wear a big dress.
Everything was good in Derati until the missionary came.
The actor, Eddie Osei, who plays Mweke, primarily in England, he is known as a character actor for comedy. Does a lot of comedy. Luke Reichel, who did the costumes on this, had a sort of field day with this scene. For much of the film, he was kind of stuck with the same kind of costumes over and over. But here he was able to use all the research into traditional tribal dress and different war costumes, different tribes in Africa, and use all of them.
Easy, boys! Let Mr. Merrin through.
As Father Merrin heads back into the church, the wind is blowing. The devil in this film is reflected in several elements. There's the wind, there's the hyena, there's Captain Howdy, there's the voice. It's not really meant to be simplistic. It's one or the other. These are kind of fractional manifestations of the evil. It's the spring sound. It's Lucifer. It's the perfection. The notion of Satan has a number of manifestations. Now, from this point on till the very end, this is all Dog Fashion Disco soundtrack. And so this last double reel, which is where we are now, to the end, they did from start to finish. And they also did a song called Satan's March, which plays over the tail credits. Now, actually, Marin is pouring out salt there, which is, some part of a exorcism ritual.
You think your uniform will save you?
We actually had Billy in the cavern here on a pedestal made of green so he could float around. But it's the nature of these kind of shots that he looks like he was just stuck in afterward. But he actually was in the room at the time, sitting on a pedestal during these scenes.
Holy Trinity, one God, have mercy on us.
You're a weak vessel.
We had to do a little digital work on that shot because when Stellan hit the wall, all the fiberglass rocks moved.
It's not only me who fights you. I'm not alone. Oh, ye holy angels and archangels, pray for us.
Now, to kind of ratchet this climax up, to show that this whole valley is falling into insanity, I had the idea of using the Northern Lights, which I had seen once on a trip to Minnesota. And in these two sequences, we reveal these lights, which of course are totally implausible in the Southern Hemisphere. But it was an attempt to show that in this demonic possession, this whole valley has been infested with unnatural phenomenon, and used the Northern Lights for that. Now, we'll come back to the Northern Lights. Schrader built the Northern Lights on the color spectrum. So they go through the colors in the order of the color spectrum. Starting with red and going through to purple, and then finally to white.
From pestilence, famine, and war. Oh Lord,
this is where the demon gives Marin a glimpse of one of his alter egos, one of his more terrifying egos, the one we had seen on the statue from years before, and which was inspired by the Flash figure in the Friedkin film.
From everlasting death.
This shot here, where the devil sneaks up behind him, was done. This is not a digital shot. This was done as a real effect on the floor.
You, priest.
We go back to Holland. And this is a separate shooting from the opening of the film. They're all separate shots, even though they were shot at the same time, because the dialogue is slightly different, and Marin, or rather Stellan, gives a different performance. In the first one, he's, tentative and frightened. In this one, since it's his imagination of how he should have acted, he's much more forceful and has a different type of performance. I was also sort of trying to figure out how to get, Marin on his journey back to God. And not only do I use this devil's temptation of sending him back to Holland to reenact it, but I was trying to figure out how to get from Holland back to the crypt. And I realized that I could go back through the dream, that what I had established in the dream originally, I could use that imagery to take me back to the crypt, and so that the dream would be more integral to his journey. And these dream images, they have some symbolic weight, but they're not necessarily, who is that woman? I'm not quite sure who that woman is. I don't think dream imagery should be that simplistic anyway. It's more of feelings and so forth.
God decided to kill them anyway. Your guilt is gone. You are free.
At this point, Marin rejects, the devil's bargain, which is essentially to live without guilt. And continues to persevere. I mean, how do you conquer the devil? You conquer the devil by perseverance. It's about the ritual and about the repetition. And he calls upon all the saints that have ever lived and all the people who have lived and died in Christ to stand with him. As you see here through the Northern Lights, the escalating madness all around him. So in his fight against the devil, he's not only fighting for himself, he's fighting for all of this phenomenon that is being created. It was always a problem in this film and all of these kind of supernatural films is, how do you beat the devil? Because the devil, really, you can't beat him. And, this film takes the traditional Christian position that, through the ritual, through belief, through prayer, through repetition, eventually God will have the day. And so what Marin needs to do here is just keep up the fight. We shot this at all different speeds. We shot all of these shots at 96, 72, 48, and 24 frames. And Billy's experience as a dancer and a performer really came in handy here because he was able to do all of this kind of dance moves and this gyration, which were really quite beautiful. And particularly when you shot them at slower speeds, there was a kind of magic to all of this physicality. Because now, see, this this is 72 frames right here. And now you're going back to 32. You know, it's virtually every shot is a different speed at this point.
To the other, I will oppose you. Until my soul burns in hell, I will oppose you. We exorcise you, each unclean spirit. We cast you out, each power of Satan, each infestation of the enemy. Repel, O Lord, the power of this.
And now Storaro, having reached the end of his color spectrum, is just going into white. In a belated effort to make the film more scary, we shot a scene right in this area where Francis is repossessed. But we shot it wrong, and I'm glad we shot it wrong because it never worked, and I was able to throw it out. That was one of the scenes that was sort of added while we were shooting in an attempt to try, make the cow look like a horse, and try to make the film more horror-driven than, in fact, it was scripted to be. The epilogue here sets up Marin's future as an exorcist, going off to report to Rome and to, his life's work at, chasing down the devil. Very shortly, he'll stop over at Father Francis's grave. Francis is buried by the schoolhouse. We shot that grave after we had killed Francis in the clinic, but it still works, even though that scene was cut out, because it's just presumed that Francis dies of his Saint Sebastian experience. This cue here, Angelo Badalamenti, we go back to Angelo, we go back to his the theme music he did, and for the sort of triumphant finale.
I didn't see a thing. They won't get anything out of me. Good luck.
This scene, the scene we just saw was Morocco. This is Rome. The last shot will be back to Morocco. And Ferraro was very intentionally using heavy, heavy white light here, just as a thematic point about the color spectrum and where the movie has come to. And he liked Clara's skin for this reason, that she is so pale that he was able to burn her up and make her kind of glow in this white light. And I didn't realize it at the time we were shooting it, how white he was actually shooting her. But when I saw it, I really liked it.
Will you write me?
Yeah.
The final shot, which is coming up, of Marin walking off. And another, I didn't mention it earlier, another manifestation of the devil is not only the wind, but also the dust that comes with the wind, which we had seen earlier. So he walks into the dust. into the dust storm, to the devil storm, and vanishes. And hanging from his hand, like a six gun, is the rosary as John Wayne walks off to fight the forces of the wind and dust. And somehow we made it through that. I thank you. And in a few seconds, the metal song will come on, and I'm going to hang up my microphone. Thank you.
Helpless.